It started like any ordinary morning in September 1996. The sun had barely risen over the small town of Cedar Creek, Oklahoma, when James Holloway brewed his first cup of coffee. His twins, Lily and Logan, were still rubbing sleep from their eyes, getting ready for school. Neighbors waved as James pulled the red Ford pickup out of the driveway, a routine he'd done for years. But on that day, something felt off, an almost imperceptible tension in the air, a stillness that seemed heavier than usual. By mid-morning, the routine began to unravel. The twins never arrived at school, and teachers started calling James' workplace. But no one answered. At first, friends assumed the Holloways had decided to take an impromptu trip, but as the hours passed, concerns started creeping in. Phone calls went unanswered, doors remained locked, and the red pickup sat idle in the driveway, keys still dangling from the ignition. The sight of the truck, perfectly parked as if waiting for its passengers to return, sent a chill through anyone who noticed. Neighbors who tried to check on the family were met with silence. Windows were tightly shut, and the house appeared untouched, beds made, dishes washed, the TV still on a morning program James always watched. There was no sign of struggle, no indication that anyone had broken in. It was as if the Holloways had simply vanished into thin air, leaving their entire life frozen in place. The eerie stillness began to ripple through the tight-knit community, turning curiosity into unease. Local authorities were notified that evening, but the initial investigation yielded little. The red pickup was carefully examined. There were no fingerprints beyond the family's own, no traces of forced entry, nothing to suggest foul play, or even why they had left at all. Officers interviewed neighbors, co-workers, and friends, but everyone was met with the same blank answers. As night fell, the idea that something truly inexplicable had occurred began to take root in the minds of the town's residents. By the second day, Cedar Creek was buzzing with fear and speculation. Flyers went up at grocery stores and gas stations, neighbors organized search parties, and the local news ran short segments on the missing family. Despite their efforts, the red pickup remained in the driveway, untouched and ominous. Each passing hour only deepened the mystery. A father and his twins vanished without a trace, leaving behind a home that seemed alive with the memory of their presence but eerily silent in their absence. As news of the Holloways' disappearance spread, the small town of Cedar Creek was gripped by disbelief. Neighbors who had waved to James that very morning now found themselves staring at the red pickup in his driveway, frozen like a haunting relic of a life that had abruptly vanished. Mothers clutched their children a little tighter, and whispers filled the air at every corner. Everyone wanted answers, but there were none. For a town that prided itself on safety and familiarity, the sudden disappearance of an entire family was like a stone thrown into a still pond, rippling fear and uncertainty everywhere. Speculation ran rampant. Some believed James had staged the disappearance, running away with his kids to escape some hidden danger, though no one could imagine what it could be. Others feared a darker explanation. Perhaps a criminal from outside town had targeted the Holloways, or worse, some local secret had claimed them. Even the sheriff, a man with decades of experience in law enforcement, admitted he had never seen a case so perplexing. The red pickup, once a symbol of the family's ordinary life, had become a chilling emblem of their sudden absence. Community members tried to make sense of it. Search parties were organized, with volunteers scouring the nearby woods, abandoned barns, and the winding country roads that surrounded Cedar Creek. Every creek, ditch, and thicket was checked multiple times, yet nothing was found. No footprints, no discarded belongings, not even a trace of a struggle. The thoroughness of the search only heightened the mystery. How could an entire family disappear without leaving a single clue behind? The town was left with an unsettling realization. Someone or something had taken them, and the answer was nowhere to be found. The local media picked up the story quickly, broadcasting it across the state. TV anchors spoke in hushed tones, calling it one of the most baffling cases in recent memory. Phone lines at the sheriff's office were flooded with tips, but every lead ended in a dead end. Reporters interviewed neighbors, friends, and relatives, painting a picture of a family who was kind, well-liked, and entirely ordinary, making their sudden disappearance all the more impossible to comprehend. Cedar Creek was no longer just a sleepy town. It had become the epicenter of a mystery that had everyone on edge. As days turned into weeks, the eerie tension in the town only grew. Businesses noticed fewer customers, children played cautiously outside, and strangers visiting the area were met with suspicious eyes. Rumors persisted about strange figures seen near the outskirts of town, odd noises in the night, and glimpses of the red pickup far from where it belonged. The Holloways' absence had left a hole not just in the neighborhood, but in the very fabric of Cedar Creek itself. Fear, confusion, and the haunting unknown began to define the town, leaving every resident wondering if they would ever see the family, or understand what had happened to them. In the months following the Holloways' disappearance, strange reports began to surface from locals who had lived in Cedar Creek for decades. At first, they were dismissed as figments of overactive imaginations, perhaps grief and fear twisting ordinary events into something eerie. But the frequency and detail of these sightings made people take notice. Several residents claimed to see a red truck parked in remote areas of the county, its paint faded but unmistakably the Holloways' vehicle, even though it had been missing for years. What unnerved the town most was the timing of these sightings. The truck often appeared at night, sometimes just along deserted highways, other times in the middle of thick woods where no vehicle should be able to reach. Those who approached it reported a sudden chill in the air, the kind that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. One local teenager swore he saw the twins' laughter echoing from inside the dark cab. When he ran to investigate, nothing remained but the empty truck and the faint smell of wet earth. Other accounts were even stranger. Hunters reported fleeting glimpses of a man walking along fog-covered trails near the edge of the woods. He was tall, wearing a dark jacket, and always seemed to vanish the moment anyone got close. On several occasions, hikers claimed to see the red pickup moving slowly along abandoned dirt roads, yet there was no engine noise, no tracks, no tire marks, nothing to explain how it was there. The locals began to whisper that the Holloways' disappearance was far from ordinary. Something unexplainable was happening, and Cedar Creek was at its center. Some theorists, both within and outside the town, suggested supernatural causes. Ghost hunters and amateur investigators arrived, equipped with cameras, recorders, and flashlights, hoping to capture proof of the paranormal. They reported strange lights in the woods, sudden temperature drops, and electronic devices malfunctioning near the old truck's reported locations. Skeptics dismissed it as hysteria or coincidence, but the sheer volume of accounts made the story impossible to ignore. People were beginning to feel that the Holloways had not simply vanished. They were being hidden, or perhaps even trapped, by forces beyond comprehension. The mysterious sightings created a sense of constant unease in Cedar Creek. Residents began locking doors during the day, not just at night. Children were warned to stay close to home, and strangers on the roads were watched carefully. Even those who had never met the Holloways felt the weight of the mystery pressing on their daily lives. The red truck, once a symbol of a family's ordinary life, had become a phantom presence, an omen that the story of James, Lily, and Logan was far from over, and that the truth might be far stranger than anyone could imagine. As the years turned into decades, Cedar Creek tried to move on, but the disappearance of James Holloway and his twins refused to fade from memory. The red pickup sat silently in the driveway of their home, a rusting relic of a life frozen in time. Every passing year only deepened the sense of unease that had gripped the town from the very beginning. Parents told their children the story in hushed tones, cautioning them to be careful in the woods and on the backroads, while older residents shook their heads in disbelief, unable to understand how an entire family could simply vanish without leaving a trace. Detectives and investigators came and went, many retiring or transferring before the case could be solved. Each new team reviewed the old files, only to hit the same dead ends. Leads dried up, witnesses moved away or passed on, and technology, though advancing, failed to uncover even the smallest clue. The Holloways had vanished so completely that, for a time, it seemed almost as if they had been erased from existence itself. The town's collective imagination filled the void left behind, creating rumors and legends that grew wilder with each passing year. Despite the case going cold, a few determined locals refused to forget. They revisited the woods where sightings had been reported, pored over old photographs, and scoured maps for patterns that might have been missed. Amateur sleuths tried to track down old acquaintances, hoping for a slip of the tongue, a forgotten memory, anything that could provide a hint. Each attempt ended the same way: frustration, confusion, and the chilling realization that the Holloways' disappearance was unlike anything the town had ever seen. Over the decades, the story of James, Lily, and Logan became a legend, whispered in coffee shops, grocery stores, and bars. New residents heard the tale and felt the same shiver that locals had carried for years. The red pickup became a symbol, not just of the vanished family, but of the inexplicable, the unknown, and the fear that something beyond understanding might have been responsible. Even strangers passing through Cedar Creek could sense the tension in the air, the quiet warning embedded in every glance at the abandoned vehicle. And yet, as time passed, life continued around the edges of the mystery. Schools held graduations, new families moved into the town, and the rhythms of daily life pressed on. But the disappearance of the Holloways lingered like a shadow. It was never spoken of casually, only in serious tones, with eyes cast toward the woods or the red truck that sat waiting. No one knew if they were truly gone, or if somehow, somewhere, the family was still out there, hidden from the world, leaving Cedar Creek to live with decades of unanswered questions. It was a crisp spring morning in 2025 when a construction crew arrived on the outskirts of Cedar Creek to begin work on a new highway extension. The heavy machinery rumbled across the dirt as workers cleared overgrown brush, unaware of the chilling find that awaited them. One of the excavators struck something solid beneath the earth, a metallic clang that made everyone stop. As the dirt was pushed aside, the unmistakable shape of a red pickup slowly emerged from decades of concealment. The vehicle was coated in layers of grime and rust, but its faded red paint immediately identified it as the Holloways' long-lost truck. The scene sent shockwaves through the crew. The truck had been buried in a shallow depression near an overgrown path, far from the road or any signs of recent travel. The tires were partially sunken into the soil, as if the earth itself had claimed it over the years. When word reached the sheriff's office, the entire department descended on the site, cordoning off the area and beginning a meticulous investigation. Cameras clicked, tape measures were drawn, and forensic teams combed the surrounding area for any trace of the family or other evidence that might explain the decades-long disappearance. Inside the truck, the discovery was even more unsettling. Dust covered every surface, and decades of decay had left the upholstery threadbare. Yet the seats were perfectly arranged as if someone had just stepped out. Small personal items lay scattered, an old lunchbox, a set of children's coloring books, and the faint outline of footprints embedded in the dusty floor mats. But most chilling of all was the eerie silence. There were no bodies, no skeletal remains, nothing to indicate where James, Lily, and Logan had gone. It was as if the earth had swallowed the family whole, leaving only their vehicle as a ghostly marker of their existence. The media caught wind of the discovery almost immediately, sending reporters and drone cameras into the air. News crews broadcast live from the site, showing viewers around the world the rusty red pickup half buried in mud and weeds. Locals gathered at a safe distance, some crying, some shaking their heads in disbelief, and some staring silently, as though the weight of the mystery pressed down on them. Questions erupted from every corner. How had the truck remained hidden for so long? Why hadn't the family left a trace? And most unsettling of all, were they still alive somewhere, or had the earth concealed a tragedy no one was ready to face? As investigators examined the surrounding area, they noticed subtle signs that the site had been used in the years following the disappearance. Small clearings in the brush suggested foot traffic, and faint paths wound through the trees, almost like someone had returned occasionally. The vehicle itself bore marks of digging and scratches in the metal, as though an attempt had been made to conceal or bury it deliberately. Every discovery added layers of intrigue, raising more questions than answers, and ensuring that the town of Cedar Creek, and the world beyond, would be haunted by the Holloways story for years to come. Once the red pickup had been carefully extracted from the earth, forensic teams and investigators began a painstaking examination of the vehicle. What they found inside was both fascinating and disturbing. In the glove compartment sat a small, weathered notebook, its leather cover cracked from years of exposure to moisture and decay. The pages were filled with strange symbols, cryptic dates, and odd sketches that resembled maps of the local woods, interspersed with strange, almost ritualistic markings. None of it made any sense to the experts, but it was clear that someone, perhaps James, perhaps another unknown figure, had left clues intentionally, though why remained a terrifying mystery. Among the personal effects were photographs of Lily and Logan, some taken before their disappearance, others seemingly older than the years they had been missing. Oddly, several of the photos had excess drawn over the twins' faces, as if marking something significant or warning against something. Investigators were baffled by the intent. Was it a sign of protection, a marker of danger, or part of a plan no one could understand? The images seemed almost alive with history and tension, hinting at secrets that had remained buried for nearly 3 decades. Each page and photograph deepened the sense that the Holloways' disappearance was no ordinary missing persons case. In addition to the notebook, forensic teams found traces of soil, plant matter, and even small fragments of insects that were native to areas far beyond Cedar Creek. It suggested that the truck had been moved or traveled to multiple locations before finally being buried, though there was no record of such travel, and no one had reported seeing it. The discovery raised countless questions. Had the family been hiding? Had they been forced to move in secrecy? Or had someone, or something, been orchestrating their disappearance with precision and care? Every new clue only added layers to the enigma. Adding to the mystery were peculiar signs that someone had occasionally returned to the truck over the years. The glove box, though covered in dust, had smudges suggesting recent handling, and the faint imprint of footprints in the floor mats hinted at movement. Even more chilling was the presence of small personal items that did not belong to the Holloways. Tiny trinkets, a single child's shoe, a hand-drawn card, like someone else had been interacting with the truck in secret. These subtle clues implied that the story of the Holloways had never truly ended. It had been quietly continuing in the shadows, far from the public eye. The discovery left investigators frustrated and terrified in equal measure. The deeper they looked, the more impossible the case seemed. Nothing fit together logically. The family, the truck, the cryptic notebook, and the signs of repeated visits formed a puzzle with pieces that refused to align. For the town of Cedar Creek, the revelations were both fascinating and horrifying. The Holloways story was no longer simply about disappearance. It was about secrets that had survived decades, taunting anyone who dared to look too closely, and leaving the question of what truly happened hanging like a storm cloud over the entire community. Even after the red pickup was unearthed and examined, the story of James Holloway and his twins refused to fade from Cedar Creek. The town became obsessed with the mystery, as if the very woods and roads were holding onto the family's secrets. Locals spoke in hushed tones about strange happenings, lights flickering in abandoned homes, unexplained footprints appearing near the edges of the forest, and fleeting shadows darting across empty fields. Each incident reinforced the idea that the Holloways' disappearance was far from ordinary, and that their story had imprinted itself on the land itself. Paranormal enthusiasts and amateur investigators flocked to the site, drawn by curiosity, fear, and the hope of uncovering proof of something beyond understanding. Cameras were set up to record in the dead of night, audio devices left to capture ghostly whispers, and thermal imaging scanners scanned the woods for unusual activity. Many reported hearing distant laughter, seeing moving shapes in the fog, or feeling sudden chills that made their skin crawl. For some, the investigation became an obsession, a dangerous game with the unknown that blurred the line between fact and fear. Meanwhile, Cedar Creek itself changed. The disappearance and the shocking discovery had left a permanent mark on the town's collective psyche. Streets once bustling with life now seemed quieter at night. Children were warned to avoid the woods, and parents grew suspicious of every strange noise or movement. Even years later, the red pickup became a symbol, an eerie reminder that the Holloways had not simply vanished, but had somehow left an invisible footprint that would haunt the town forever. It was as though the very air carried the memory of what had happened, keeping the story alive long after the last search team had left. Theories about the family's fate multiplied, ranging from the plausible to the unthinkable. Some believed James had hidden his family to protect them from a threat no one else could see. Others speculated about foul play, perhaps a serial predator or a dark cult operating in secrecy. Yet another faction whispered of paranormal forces, suggesting that the Holloways had crossed paths with something beyond comprehension, something that had claimed them, leaving only their truck as a ghostly remnant. The more people speculated, the stronger the story's grip became, cementing it as a cautionary tale and a chilling legend. Even today, decades after their disappearance, locals swear that the Holloways' presence lingers in subtle ways. Some claim to see a flash of red in the distance, like the pickup driving along a road no longer traveled. Others report hearing children laughing in the woods when no one is there, or feeling the gaze of unseen eyes while walking past the abandoned driveway. The town has learned to live with the unknown, but the questions remain. Where did James, Lily, and Logan go? Why did they vanish without a trace? And will Cedar Creek ever truly be free from the shadow of their disappearance? Despite the decades that have passed, the disappearance of James Holloway and his twins remains one of the most baffling mysteries in Cedar Creek. The red pickup, unearthed after 29 years, offered clues, but no answers. The notebook, the cryptic symbols, and the faint traces of someone returning to the truck only deepened the enigma. Some say the family may still be out there, hidden somewhere, watching silently as the world moves on without them. Others believe they were claimed by forces that no one can explain, leaving the town forever haunted by the memory of what was lost. For Cedar Creek, and for those who stumble upon this story, one thing is certain: some disappearances never truly end. The Holloways' story lingers in the woods, along deserted roads, and in the shadow of that long-buried red pickup. Every whisper of the wind, Every flicker of movement in the night serves as a chilling reminder that the past can reach forward, and that the unknown is always closer than we think. Perhaps one day, the truth will finally be revealed. But until that moment comes, the mystery remains, a dark, unanswered question that continues to grip hearts, spark speculation, and remind us all that some stories are far too strange, too haunting, to ever truly be forgotten.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.